Hi, everybody. My name's John Myer, and today we're talking about results focused end user support for biotech. This is Myer Media on behalf of PTP, and joining us today is Brian. Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Brian, I'm going to jump right into it. I think all of our audience knows what help desk support is. What is PTP's white glove end user support, and how is it different?
John, white glove refers a little bit more to the hands-on customer focused approach, right? So realistically, when we talk about end user support, we're talking about technical support. But when I think of what technical support really is, it's customer focused support. And that means having the understanding that you're taking up time in somebody's calendar, you're taking up time in their day, and you're responsible for making sure that that time is well used, that their information as far as what is being done on their computers being well communicated, and also making sure that we're also acting as a first line of defense diffuser as well. When a lot of people are contacting the help desk, they're already a little bit upset and perturbed that something's not working the way that it's supposed to be working. So a lot of times my job and our analyst's job is to be a little bit of a diffuser, settle that issue down, make sure that the end user knows, hey, this is not something that's way out of the ordinary. We can fix it. It is not going to be the end of your day. It's not worth all of the stress of freaking out about. So take a step back, maybe breathe a little bit, calm down, and then we can get focused and right to work on making sure that everything's working properly for you so that you can get back to doing what you do best.
Brian, traditional help desk is I submit a ticket, right? And I never actually talk to the other person on the end of the ticket. It's an email back and forth, back and forth. And finally, it get resolves 2 to 3 weeks later. But with PTP's white glove, it sounds more personalized that you're engaging with them, you're understanding, you're empathizing with their issues, and you're trying to solve them without passing them around.
Exactly. So realistically, we want it to stay more like a communication conversation, right? So you have an individual issue going on, and everybody's individual issues and everybody's laptops are different. So we want to make sure that you feel that embrace from PTP. We know that you're going through your issues, and we're working to resolve your issues, not just reading off of a script, not going through just best business practices. We are using our technical background and history of knowing that we are experts in figuring out what is going to be the best solution for you, but we're working through your individual issue and not treating as if we're dealing with hundreds of the same issues every single day.
Brian, it sounds a little more personalized and it takes a specific type of skills or even traits. When you bring on a PTP member, what are some of those skills or personal traits that you look for in order to provide this white glove support?
Yeah, so realistically, when I think of adding anybody to the PTP team, I think of what do we have and what do we need to have, right? So what we have in abundance are SOPs, we have how-to guides, we have best practices, we have troubleshooting guides for the wealth of information across operating systems and applications already. So I'm not looking for somebody to come in and say, I'm going to rewrite the way that we support and resolve Microsoft 365 issues. I'm looking for somebody who can relay that information in a clear and concise way to a client, who can speak well on a bridge call between our client and ourselves, who can properly communicate that information both via verbal and written skills, and just make sure that they have a general positive and upbeat demeanor, right? So if somebody comes into a call and you can sense that they're stressed, they've got a million things going on. If you come into that call the same level of energy and you're stressed and you have a million things going on and you've dealt with 100 tickets today, then they're going to be able to sense it on their side as well. So just making sure that you bring that calming energy to the call, make sure that you're bringing that customer focused empathy to the call, and just making sure that your communication skills are top notch. I think that's where we really set ourselves apart from your general average MSP, is that though we are handling a lot of different complex issues all at once, we treat every individual issue as if they are the most important issue, because they're the most important issue to you, the end user, and we want to make sure that it's reflected in the support that we're giving.
I understand technical skills are really important when it comes to end user support. Do you feel that it's also important to have those communication skills, not only with the end user who's having the issue, but also in the broader community?
Absolutely. I think that realistically, the best way for any organization or industry to grow is through the information that's being shared out amongst the other professionals and experts in that industry, right? So um, it becomes our responsibility to say, "Hey, we've come across this strange issue. Let's communicate that out to the greater community, and whether that be within PTP, whether that be within joining other forums of discussion within the larger ConnectWise user base, or user base for MSPs as a whole. I think that that becomes our responsibility as members of the community to grow it and to make sure that we're all succeeding. Because if one aspect of IT support is looked down upon as a whole across an industry, then people get bad information and have bad perceptions of what it means to interact with an IT professional. And we're looking to change that. You know, we want to make sure that you understand we're personable people the same way that you are on your side of the computer, and so we're going to treat you as a person. And so changing that perception of like what an IT professional is from more of a technical expert to more of a customer focused expert, I think is a large reason as far as why PTP and our help desk services exceed our expectations and are able to be part of the industry leading side of things.
Well, Brian, speaking of changes, do you feel that there have been some end user support changes in the industry to not only improve customer satisfaction, but also to resolve tickets?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you're seeing a more in the age of the internet being your basic business tool, right? Where in the early 2000s you might have one or two accounts online, right? But nowadays the business speed moves so much faster, right? So organizations working 24 hours a day across several time zones, needing to have instant access to their resources, the growth of the cloud industry so people aren't supporting things on site, um, outsourcing of smaller needs as far as like, hey, we now have these virtualized systems and servers, but we might not need to employ somebody full time for these. Um, so being able to have our 24 by 7 business model, our 365 business model, allowing us to provide different levels of support through phone support, through email support, through um, instant messaging support, bridging across Microsoft Teams and Slack into different organizations, allowing us to resolve the issues as they're coming up, and also incorporating a little bit of use into AI for lower hanging fruit, things like account lockouts and changing passwords, allowing users to really fulfill some of their own needs as well. Really empowers the user, creates a faster resolution, takes away a little bit of the stress and burden on our side of things as well, so that we can make sure that those really tricky issues we can dedicate our full focus to and make sure that they're getting resolved in the right way.
Empowering the end user has been around for a while. You know, kind of the metrics for help desk is what's the number one thing that help desk gets called for? My password. Okay, so now we enabled users to reset their password to get logged back in, saving the help desk some time and using their expertise to troubleshoot the bigger picture, the bigger problems. You also, I mean, this would not be a conversation without talking about a little bit about AI, and we're not going to go into depth, but do you feel that AI is going to help even more in end user support?
I think it has the capability to help as well as make it a little bit more complex, right? So I think when we talk about help, you're absolutely right. The low hanging fruit, your account lockouts, your password resets, your quick tickets, right? How do I set up my email signature? How do I access this document? How do I request access for this document? Going through the quick approval levels for that. The challenge with AI becomes when AI is expected to do more of a load than what it can really do. When you get into the nuance of the issue and you're really trying to describe a technical issue without being a technical professional to a system that is trying to suss through what you're describing to it and then is only able to give you information as to what's already been asked and what is available in its library of information, right? So it's a little bit of twofold where, yes, it does definitely help in resolving a lot of those smaller issues, but don't always take the AI and the machine language for gospel, because it only has the information that others have put into it. It can't create new information. And when it's creating new information based off of what it already has, it can tend to give you some incorrect information. So being able to um, determine what is correct and what is incorrect, and also being able to make sure and confirm that the information that you're being given is actually detailing about what's your issue versus what could have been a million different issues.
Brian, before you were talking about the documents, and you don't need somebody to recreate the documents that you already have, but when you use AI, you might be ingesting those documents onto the how to. But the processes and procedures might change. And I think that just goes to the point where you're saying AI can't create new things. It's only going to create new things based off of old things or other information into it. So the processes could have changed throughout it, which could get more end user frustration and make it slightly a little more complex.
Exactly. And I think that that's really where we get back to that white glove conversation where, speaking with an individual person, the nuance is a little bit more understood, right? If I'm asking you to describe to me what's going on your screen and you tell me, Brian, it's a little bit fuzzy in this top corner here area, you're not using an industry defined term. You're not saying, hey, I'm seeing graphical artifacting, right? And the AI, if it's picking up the term graphical artifacting, goes, okay, now I know that this is a display issue. It's most likely related to a GPU, right? But if you're not a technical person or a technical analyst, you might be an expert in any other industry. You could be an expert in sales. You could have two PhDs in biochemistry. But to then ask you to also be an IT expert and describe using industry terms isn't really super helpful. So when we talk about the reason for that white glove service, in understanding the nuance of what's going on. Hey, things are just a little bit wonky is not a great industry term, but it definitely helps me to understand, hey, what's going on the machine a little bit more? Can you describe a little bit more of what's going on? It creates that communication level, that conversational piece where we can dive deeper into it. We can suss through what your answers are to get a little bit deeper and say, okay, well, you're describing this. Is it acting like this? Is it acting like this? Is it acting like this? And then we can go from that top down where we create that like funnel pipeline of we start broad and we get narrower and narrower, where an AI might not understand that nuance and can, and like you said, can cause some real frustration if it starts with the large broad and deviates almost immediately from that.
Brian, I'm going to wrap up with my last question and kind of going into a little bit more of the AI aspect of it. Now, I think we're early on in AI, and would you prefer an end user to go to a chat bot that is AI driven, right? Or reach out to an end user support person right away? And I'm going to preface that is one could be an easy question versus a complex question.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a little bit of a double-edged sword either direction, right? So if you're talking about, like, my preference would be to maybe start with something very broad and information gathering. You can talk to a chatbot, see if you can resolve your own issue, right? If it is something low hanging, very easy. Hey, I'm locked out of my machine. I just need somebody to go in, verify that this is me, unlock the machine so that I can log in and get through with my day, right? The chatbot's great for that. It can ask you some verification questions to confirm that you are who you say you are, can go through security steps to make sure that we're not granting access or giving out information to a user who's not actually the user that they're stating that they are. However, I think that a lot of people have a perception of wanting to talk to a person, right? We all get frustrated when we call Verizon support desk, and Verizon support desk takes 45 minutes just to get to a person. And then you get put into a hold queue for another 10 to 15 minutes just to then maybe talk to a person, right? So I think that there's a lot of nuance to it. I think that AI is great for a lot of quick resolutions. If you want to make sure that you're taking the time to empower yourself to potentially see if you can fix it, then AI is excellent for that. If you're somebody that says, hey, I know that I'm not going to be able to describe this issue in five different questions, or I'm seeing questions and I'm not sure what the questions are really prompting me to ask, or even I can't even tell you how I'm supposed to send a screenshot to an individual, then I think that those are issues where we'll never lose the human element. We'll always have agents there to help and assist with, because that's where the industry and where the end users really want us to be, is having that personalized empathy, that human level of understanding of another human really can help us resolve those issues in the best way. And like I said, just make sure that you're not feeling so frustrated or overwhelmed that it causes an issue for the rest of your day, but also to make sure that you're not crazy. Like, these issues do happen to everybody. IT experts have IT issues and they need to escalate to IT technicians. We're constantly asking each other questions across our own group. So, like, you're not crazy thinking I should be able to resolve this. And the AI is telling me that I should be able to resolve this. So why can't I resolve this? So I think for those sorts of issues, the human element will always need to exist in AI, in information technology, especially as far as end user support's concerned. Um, but I do think that there is a lot of intrinsic value in the chatbot as far as empowering end users to resolve issues themselves, when, especially if they have some good background in computing and IT information themselves.
End users and help desk support and white glove service. Brian, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Everybody, today we were actually talking about results focused end user support for Biotech. My name's John Myer on behalf of PTP. And don't forget to check out PTP at ptp.cloud.